So you might have questions about the Massachusetts Performance Assessment for Leaders Task 1, which is entitled Leadership Through a Vision for High Student Achievement. You might want to know about the processes, requirements, and expectations. So this video is going to answer some of your questions. My student Lauren is here, and she has a couple of questions about Task 1. I'm a professor in a principal licensure program, and I am Lauren's advisor. So Lauren wanted to ask me a couple of questions, so listen in on our conversation.
Hi, Professor H. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed about choosing a priority area. So what is a priority area? How should I select an appropriate academic priority area for Task 1?
Well, remember our discussion that leaders have to address two aspects of highly effective schools, the instructional program and the school culture. So the purpose of Task 1 is for you to demonstrate how to focus on and make a plan to improve student learning based on one priority academic area while taking into consideration the instructional program in place and building culture. So there are a couple of ways that I can answer your question. Your priority academic area of focus is on student learning, and it has to be relevant for the school, but be feasible for the task and possibly the other tasks as well. So for example, you might analyze student performance data and looking specifically at English language arts and identify weaknesses in student writing. So your analysis might show which reading skills need more attention. You may learn from your interviews with teachers that there are gaps in writing instruction because it's incorporated in too few content areas and there are too few formative assessments to enable teachers to monitor writing skill development. You would then use these results to develop a plan to improve student writing performance. Okay, so to select a priority academic area, start with a content area that is of interest to you or one that's critical to your school. So you might want to ask the principal or another school leader for some guidance here. In addition, that principal is going to be able to help you find and access the data pertaining to the school. So keep in mind that you're supposed to give special attention to a specific student group. So when you focus on the student performance data for a priority area, be sure to look at trends and patterns for different groups of students in your grade levels. So you're going to study, think and reflect, interview people, especially the building leadership team or some other formal or informal teacher leaders at the school if they don't have a building leadership team. You're going to observe classes, you're going to read some research, and you're going to determine what you could really dig into and make a plan to improve the area for students at the school. So how do you think you're going to decide your focus?
Well, I could look at where the gaps or problems areas are evident in the data. I could look at the building goals that are already in place. I'm guessing this will be apparent because the building goals are likely to be based on these data already. But I could do this by looking more closely at the experiences of specific student groups. I think I will probably focus my energy on issues that the building leaders already are in agreement about needing attention. And this will also help me to build those professional supports that I will need while working on this task.
So let me ask you this. After you've talked to the building leadership team, the principal, and you've chosen your priority area, how are you going to know that you've made the correct decision?
Well, I really need to keep my lines of communication open. So in my decisions that I'm making very transparent. So I think I'll probably have some follow-up conversations with the building leadership team or other teacher leaders about my choice and see how they react. I will need to know if my choice for priority of plan seems relevant and feasible for my context. And I will talk to these individuals, other colleagues. I will have some indication if I can move forward or if I'm better off reevaluating and maybe going in a different route. So just to clarify then, is this a building priority area, school priority area, or a district-wide priority area?
It's a school priority area. So it might also reflect a priority area that the district has as well, but schools have priority areas that are part of their school-wide goal setting. So that's where you should focus your efforts.
Okay, what kind of qualitative and quantitative data should I be collecting in this process?
Think about your data gathering and your analysis as an inquiry process. And it's going to let you focus more sharply on the area while you're developing a deeper understanding of the contributing or related issues. So start with 3 to 5 years of quantitative student performance indicators. You're looking for trends and patterns in overall performance and differences among groups. You have a wide variety of student performance data to consider, so look at the MCAS scores, but don't limit yourself to just those. Be sure to also look at other interim assessments or other measures of student performance like grades and promotion and graduation rates. Then the question you might have is what contributes to or is related to these performance trends and patterns you see. So here you would turn to look at indicators of student engagement, teacher quality, and teacher engagement, as well as the student and school culture, particularly for the target group and content area. This analysis should help refine your understanding of the problem and help focus you on how to look at students' learning experiences through observation and interviews. So remember our example of weakness in student writing? You might have several questions to explore. Do students who perform poorly in writing have attendance and behavior problems too? Who are the teachers teaching writing? So next you want to have a first-hand experience with the priority area. Go observe some classes and see what students are experiencing. Talk with a few teachers about how they're teaching the content in the focus academic area and ask them what some of their challenges are. Generally, after looking at the data, you'll have some questions for teachers, staff, administrators, and students, and then you can set up opportunities to interview these individuals or groups. The last step is to assess the gaps and opportunities in existing school programs, services, and practices that are relevant to the priority area. You might learn more about these when you're doing our interviews and observations. What processes and practices exist? How well do they work? You'll need to also investigate possible strategies, and these might come from the people who share their ideas with you, or they'll come from your own investigation and what you know already about best practices.
Okay, so since I'll be interviewing people, what are the rules about this? Can I do a survey to get feedback from a large number of teachers and students?
Well, your school's going to have policies in place pertaining to how to handle observations, interviews, and surveys at that specific site.
Okay.
So you're going to need to contact the district's central office and get some correct information on forms and steps. Usually the observations, interviews, and surveys are done to improve school practices, so they'll be improved, but they have to be done in ways that aren't going to interfere with student learning. So before you decide to do a survey, I would think about whether or not that's the best way to get information. It's going to have to be really short, relevant, and easy to use if you're going to get a good response rate. I'll be happy to look at a draft survey before you go sending it out to school leaders.
Okay. So after I find out how to proceed with these interviews and observations and surveys, what might I schedule?
Well, you can hold informal interviews and conversations, but you really should have some formal, organized interviews with your principal, members of the building leadership team, and other individuals or groups you think would provide valuable insight pertaining to Task 1. You can distribute a survey or organize a focus group to talk about the priority area options. Their feedback will really help you with your plan.
Okay, so who are considered those key stakeholder groups in the school, and to whom should I be reaching out to for participation?
Well, who does the priority area involve, directly or indirectly?
Oh, okay. Well, staff members like teachers, principals, other building leadership team members, teacher leaders, students, possibly parents.
Well, consider those people who are most relevant to your priority area and in supporting change. Student perspectives are essential, as are the teachers for the content area.
How do I report this process in the artifacts that I submit?
Let's see what the instructions say.
Okay.
They say you have two ways to show this process. The first is writing a memo to your principal or superintendent in which you identify your priority area and give a rationale using your data analyses. You are also to provide an analysis of the gaps and use issues for existing program services and practices. This is short, just 3 single-space pages, and it must be persuasive to convince your leaders that there is a need for an action plan. The second way to show your analysis process is in the documents you submit, and the guidelines here ask for 5 categories of information and forms.
Okay, let's say I have all of this data about the priority area from my school, including insights from the interviews, the surveys, the focus groups. I've looked at the best practice around getting my priority area, and so when making my plan, what do you recommend I keep in mind as I build this improvement plan?
So the plan is going to be an integrated set of action strategies that can be developed and implemented to improve student learning in the priority area for the target student group. The guidelines call for very specific information, so use this to develop your plan. And according to the instruction, it can only be 4 single-space pages, so you're going to have to be clear and to the point. Most importantly, the plan has to be built around a coherent theory of action that will generate improved outcomes from implementation of the strategies, and it should reflect the school context and culture, as well as the scope and nature of the improvement desired. So it's to be evidence-based argument about how the plan will improve learning for the students in the priority area. A rationale for the plan is extremely important as you tailor it to the school's context and needs. So make a feasible plan that's worthwhile and valuable to your environment. As you're learning to be a school leader, acute awareness of your context is going to be crucial. So this is a component of the leadership skills on which you're going to be assessed.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about the elements of the plan pertaining to the 8 different components?
No, not yet, but maybe I will once I know what I'm going to be planning. Where can I find examples of plans, and do I actually carry this plan out?
So you're going to ask the school and the district leaders for copies of plans that they've used in the past to help you in preparing this one.
Okay.
And no, at this point, you're just proposing a feasible plan that would be appropriate for addressing the priority area that you have identified. You're not going to actually execute the plan.
Okay. So I read that once I'm done developing the plan, I need to provide some sort of self-assessment. So what do I use to complete the self-assessment? What guidelines should I follow?
Let's look at the commentary section of Task 1. It highlights the topics to include in your self-assessment. Use these prompts about your developing leadership skills, like how did you engage others? How did you develop a theory of action and accompanying strategies? How did you use feedback? And other topics found in your Massachusetts PAL documents. Remember to highlight your successes and challenges and how you would do things differently if you were to do Task 1 over again. You're showing your capacity to be critical of your own leadership skills, both of what you learned and how those could be improved.
Okay. The Task 1 document reads, Task 1 assesses the capacity of school leadership candidates to develop a vision of high-quality student achievement and a plan for improving student learning in a priority area. How exactly will I be assessed?
So it's my understanding that your work is going to be scored by trained independent scorers who are experienced school leaders or leadership preparation faculty. So they're going to be comparing your work products to the indicators of each rubric. Take a look at the rubrics at the end of Task 1's description. Each rubric component will give you clear indications of what leadership practices are expected to successfully complete Task 1 and what different levels of proficiency is going to look like. You should aim to have your work reflect the descriptions for meeting or exceeding. So, for example, the first rubric is an assessment on data collection and analysis, and the first indicator is on data collection. Meeting this expectations means that you gathered multiple years of school and student data and conducted observations and interviews from students, teachers, and others about the priority area. But to be rated exceeding on this indicator means that you generated a hypothesis about student performance in the priority area, and then you used that to focus additional data collection. It also means that you explained how you were systematic and purposeful in collecting interview and observation data and how you looked at different student groups' experiences. Use the exceeding portion of the rubric as your guide.
Right. Thank you so much. You've given me a lot to think about. So I will keep the Candidates Assessment Handbook and the other Massachusetts PAL documents very close. I think I will be continuously referring back to those pieces. I will be back with more questions once I've gathered information about my priority area.
All right, there you go, Lauren.
Thanks.
Good luck.